our last late night park session.
So let me start off with a little bit of backstory. This happened about 15 years ago when I was a teenager. About 15. The house I used to live in was about a quarter mile from a fairly large and fairly busy park, but at about 9 or 10 o'clock, it would become pretty desolate. This park was pretty big. It had several sections to it, like a lake and children's playground and just a big grass field where you could play frisbee or run or whatever. But as I said, at about 9 or 10, this place would become pretty desolate. For the most part, the only people that would go there were doing pretty suspicious activities, which is why we were there. Not that we were doing anything too suspicious, really, just drinking and smoking underage. But since we had nowhere else to go, that was pretty much our only option. Generally, none of us would ever go there alone. We'd meet with a friend before and then go there together and meet up. And usually there was about 6 or 7 of us. And seeing that we ranged in age from 13 to 18, we weren't unintimidating, but we weren't intimidating. So one night we all decided to meet there, and it was a little bit later than usual. Let's say about 1 a.m. And as usual, I met up with my friend. We'll call him R. And then we met up with our other friends, C and K. And there were about 4 or 5 other people that we'd messaged, but nobody else responded, so it was just the 4 of us, which was smaller than usual, but nothing we were really worried about at the time. So R had a little bit of weed, and we decided that we'd go up near a horse trail, and we'd light it up. This horse trail is in the back part, and is not very well lit, so we thought it would be a good idea to go there. Unfortunately for us, we didn't realize that the lighter and the end of our joint would illuminate and pretty much show where we are and what we were doing. But again, like I said, we weren't really that worried. After about 4 or 5 minutes of smoking, it was 3/4 the way through, and we were starting to feel high, which also comes with a little paranoia, especially at that age. That's when C told us to be quiet, and at first we all were. But after about 5 seconds, we all started laughing, thinking that he was just fucking with us. But still, the look on his face wasn't right. Of all of us, he was the least of a joker or clown or whatever you want to say. He usually didn't crack jokes, and for the most part, he never played any sort of practical jokes like this. So it's hard to explain, but we were kind of in a circle, and the way we were standing, C was really the only one who could see what was going on behind us. Slowly, we kind of all turned our heads and looked, and we saw an older man, almost clearly homeless. He came from even further back in the horse trail, where it's not so well kept. He slowly started walking towards us, and he was kind of smiling, but not really. More of like a blank look in his eyes, with a semi-cocked head and a half smile. He didn't say anything as he started walking up towards us, and when he got about 50 feet from us, we shouted to him, "Can we help you?" Still, he didn't say anything and just kept walking towards us. That's when we decided we weren't going to risk hearing what he had to say, if he had anything to say at all. We all took off back in the direction we'd come from, basically running towards light. We heard C start screaming. Also, keep in mind, C was the most heavy set. He still had a little lead in front of him, but I could hear him screaming. That's when we all kicked it into overdrive, including C. I guess the fight or flight really kicked in. But for a minute there, I really thought he was going to pass out or something. So we make it back towards the direction of the light, but we all live at different directions from there. So as we came, me and R leave, and C and K go their own way. We can still see each other for maybe 1/8 a mile of the walk. Then it kind of forks off and they go right and we go left. Basically, at the moment where our backs are turned to each other, we hear a scream from inside the park. Not a scream for help or anything like that, more like a battle cry. From there, we all just started running home. And as it turns out, C ended up sleeping at K's house because they didn't want to separate. And R ended up staying at my house because we didn't want to separate. And we all ended up getting in trouble for sneaking out because we got caught. Basically, when your friend wasn't there when your parents went to bed, and he is there in the morning, there's very little excuses that will help get you out of that other than he came really early in the morning, I swear. By the time we all met up and told our whole stories to each other, it was pretty creepy. C basically explained that he had this weird type of pocket knife. And he said it was pretty damn long. I think the freakiest part of it all is we never heard the guy's voice. And then we heard that scream and we're left wondering, was that what he sounded like?
Creep on the green belt.
This happened about 2 years ago. At the time, me and my cousin were both turning 13. Our birthdays are only 2 days apart, and we are very close, so we usually celebrate together. My cousin's house is in a very cool part of town, where the houses are kind of separated, but each of their backyards leads to a green belt that they all share. By green belt, I mean basically this long patch of grass that has telephone wires above it. And it's actually kind of pretty, but at the same time, a little bit ugly. So on our 13th birthday, after the party festivities, and everybody had left, it was just me, my cousin, and one of our friends. We went out onto the green belt, laid down, brought our iPad out, and listened to some music. At about 10 o'clock, we all started feeling a little sketched out, as it was pretty dark. So about 200 yards down the green belt, there's a little road. This leads to another neighborhood. And we could see headlights coming down it, but they were there for like 3 or 4 minutes, which is a little bit unusual. Then we realized that car must be stopped and still running. And then we started really feeling creeped out because there's only about 4 houses around ours. So if something was going on, it was in one of those 4 houses. And we know all our neighbors pretty well. That's when we realized the guy running along the wall towards us. And I mean running. We grabbed the iPad, which I honestly don't even know why we did. We were so scared we should have just left it, but I'm glad we did. And thank God our backyard's connected to the green belt, because I swear we barely beat him to it. From my backyard, the sliding back door was open, and my parents were on the couch, which is only about 5 feet from the door, and we all started screaming. I swear I thought he was going to jump over the gate and grab one of us. My dad came running, and my uncle did too. But the guy kept running, I guess. And by the time that we blurted out what had happened, and my uncle and dad went to go find him, he was long gone. We told him about the car, and they both said that they saw the lights, but the guy must have reversed because they never saw the car pass. Still to this day, we won't go out on the greenbelt past 8 o'clock, or as soon as the sky starts getting dark.